back, you guys. This is the Art School Graduate, Season 3, and now we are in the month of February, and I'm so excited for this guest. And for the people that are watching, this is just something I have to show you guys. I have to show you because if you guys are looking at all these album covers right here, if you're in your late 30s, if you're in your 40s, even if you're in your 50s, guaranteed you've heard these albums. You've seen these artworks. And this is just the tip of this great artist, designer, creator's 40 years of creating. And ladies and gentlemen, that great artist is Cey Adams. Cey, how are you, my brother? How are you doing?
Good, Justin. It's great to be on the show. And, you know, I have to say I'm still wrapping my mind around getting used to seeing the body of work together because for a long time, you know, my team and I made things and, you know, we just move on with life. But now we're at that point where anniversaries are rolling around.
Yeah.
You know, some are, 20, 25, 30, 25, and now 40. It's mind-boggling.
Yes.
Well, my buddy LL Cool J just turned 57. Kim just turned 57. I've known these guys since they were teenagers.
That's crazy, man. That is crazy. That the stories behind just knowing them at 17 till 57, it's crazy. Man, we had a brief conversation yesterday and we were digging into it. So I'm excited to share some of the things we talked about. And so I would like to take it to the beginning. And for you, that was graffiti. Through our conversation and even through my own research, you were part of that creative explosion of graffiti in New York City. You even said one of your great friends was Jean-Michel Basquiat.
Yep.
That's crazy. So can you just take us through that journey of young you?
What you have to remember is that, we lived in New York. So being friends with Jean-Michel was, it wasn't anything unusual, nor special really, because everybody that we hung out with at that time was fabulous in their own right. And us, we have to have our own little ego or else you'll never leave the house.
Right.
Because you need that. You have to be able to pound your chest and say, I'm the best at what I do. Even as a teenager, to have the confidence to step in front of people that have done a little something.
Yeah.
Jean-Michel was one of those guys. The same, with Keith Haring. And at the time, we were all just starting out and trying to make our mark. And I knew it was extraordinary just to have friends outside the neighborhood. So that was as far as it went for me.
Yeah. And how was it even being in, like when I was getting into graffiti, Style Wars, they have 15-year-old you. How is that?
Well,
how is seeing that? And now you're here at this place.
Well, the thing that I find really fascinating is that a lot of the people that were in that film are still friends of mine to this. We're all, older. Yeah. And who knew? Who knew that we were going to literally set the world on fire. And I know that's a bad analogy considering what's on the West Coast, forgive me. But, we just had no indication that we were creating something that was going to be so amazing. We're just, and this movement and gave so many folks hope and opportunity. And I feel so fortunate to come from that early group, not the first, but certainly, our, group that broke through in the 70s, we were those pioneers, even though there were cats that, started this in the late 60s and early 70s, but we were the ones who kicked the door in.
Yeah. So what is it like seeing where graph is now to where it's come from? Because back when you started, and even up to about, I want to say maybe 15, 20 years ago, graffiti is starting to now get that space in art galleries where it's being considered these blue chip fine art pieces.
Yeah.
So how do you think that shift is? How do you seeing that shift?
Well, you got to remember, it's not really a shift, for somebody that's been around a long time. It's a lifetime. It might be a shift for somebody in their 20s, but not a shift for me.
Could you have seen it going that way?
Yeah, because when we were coming up, that was the goal. And oftentimes I say it was trying to, take something that we did that was positive and use it to, change our circumstances. We did what we had to do. For the most part, it was illegal, but we knew there was talent there, and we knew all we needed was an opportunity. But what we did not know was that we were going to have to create it ourselves. We always thought somebody was going to come and put us on, help us to figure it out on our own. And we had to create the movement. And over time, it bared fruit. And here we are all these years later. And so many of my peers have had amazing opportunities. But it's really the people that came after us that have really had these incredible opportunities to do things without having to be concerned with creating road. We paved it, and they just, were lucky enough to, follow the trail.
Wow, man. Because I know when I was doing research for a graffiti project, or even just research for a fine art project, it was an art history project, I came across Dondi, Dondi,
Yeah.
and his book, and I was just like, wow. Just like reading some of the stuff in his book that he wrote. And I was just floored to just see like literally hanging on to the side of trains just to get the best shot.
That's the way it had to be. And I'm proud to say that his family are close personal friends of mine. And together we continue his legacy because he is one of the greats.
Yeah.
And it's really important to let younger people know that these folks came and they existed, did amazing work that still to this day influences generations.
Yeah.
And Andy White was one of those people.
Oh, man. So we're going to put a pin in the graffiti. Now we're going to take it to the next step up this glorious mountain of just creativeness, I'm going to say. So we're stepping into the era of hip hop. How did you become the founder and creator of like the visuals for Def Jam? How did that happen?
By being there before anyone, I was fortunate enough to meet Russell Simmons and Rick Rubin when they were forming Def Jam back in the early 80s. A handful of my buddies like Eric Hayes and Lee Quiones and a bunch of others, we were already, on this trajectory. We were using our talent to give voice to a movement. And ultimately, what was really amazing was that we had first dibs on everything because we were the ones that figured out a way to sort of crack the code. And we're going to take our skills and apply them to this new genre. But really all it was, the way I look at it, it was, I had the ability to communicate a message that was coming directly from the recording artist. And, put it in a style and a form that was palatable for the audience that were fans of the music. And that's exactly what it was. We were speaking the same language to an audience that was also speaking the same language. And that is not a small thing because, year after year after year, we've seen when big corporations and Madison Avenue and people outside the culture try to speak to us without, the input of flavor, without the input of knowledge, without the input of authenticity. And they get it wrong. They get it wrong. And that's why we are best suited to tell this story because we are the creators.
Yes.
And the guys from FUBU said it best. For us, by us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So when it came to it, was there, I know this may be a little young of me to say, but was there even graphic design then? Was it even called that?
Sure. Yeah, graphic design has been around for, over 100 years. But that doesn't mean that if you went outside, you could stop, the average Joe or Jane on the street and say, hey, I'm a graphic designer. And they might go, okay, you might have to stop 100 people before they go, I know what that is. Now, you could stop any 12 to 15-year-old kid and go into graphic design, and they're like, cool.
So
It was just one of those things. It was a trade in industry that was, for all intents and purposes, invisible.
yes. So when it comes to, because I want to pull this up again, because I'm floored by some of these designs and I just have questions on it. So I'm gonna let you see them too right here. So as we're looking at this, for the people who are watching this, you'll be able to see this, but the people who are listening, it is a wall of his album covers that he created, and it was in a show that he had.
I'll take it from here.
Go for it.
To clean this up, we are looking at, I believe, over 60 album covers in 3 different sizes: 12 by 12, 24 by 24, and 36 by 36. But the idea was to show a wall of album covers that myself and my team at Drawing Board Graphic Design created. It was not just me. I gave everyone their opportunity, but it was not just me. It was myself and my partner at the time, Steve Carr, and we had a design firm called Drawing Board Graphic Design. And we had a small army of employees that were designers, illustrators. We had relationships with some of the best photographers in the business. And to this day, a lot of us are still friends some 40 years later. Wow. And this just, to say the names for people that, might not, obviously we're talking about something visual and not everybody might get an opportunity to see it, but it's LL Cool J, Third Base, Run-DMC, Public Enemy, EPMD, Slick Rick, the Belly, Foxy Brown, Mary J. Blige, Redman, Method Man, Onyx, DMX, Notorious B.I.G, and obviously Jay-Z. And it goes on and on and on. Slick Rick, Uncle Luke is on here, Sister is on here, Heavy D and the Boys, Craig Mack, Faith, Total, 112. It's just, man, I marvel at it myself.
I'm doing that right now.
My guys, LB Fam, the Lost Boys are on here, Redman and Method Man together. And man, Warren G, the Ghetto Boys, shout out to my man Scarface and Willie D and Bushwick. And, certainly last but not least, the Beastie Boys.
So as we look at these, can we just walk through the process of these? So how was it when you decided to come up with the image, the text, the color? Was it you first got to hear it? Were you sitting in on these conversations of what the label was looking for? Or was it more of a conversation with the artist?
It always started with the artist, because during the Def Jam era, a lot of it was about communicating what their message was. Obviously they made the music, and we had to create a visual identity that matched that in terms of look and feel. Because again, you're trying to communicate something to an audience that is very savvy. You can't talk down to them. And most importantly, it's got to look like you have your finger on the pulse of what's going on outside that door. Or more importantly, what's next. And that was always the goal. What can we do that's different? And in some cases, these were some of the first images that people saw in hip hop. And, I was watching a documentary about DMX the other day, rest in peace. And he was one of my guys. And I look at flesh of my flesh, blood of my blood, and just think, man, this guy was so brave. Shout out to the photographer, Jonathan Mannion, who shot every single one of DMX's album covers. Again, every single one. And I have to say that and echo it because these are the people that live behind the curtain. These are not the recording artists. And it's our job to create a visual that is on par with the music.
Right.
Is on par with the music. And this is what we're learning all these years later. And that's why these images stand the test of time, because we were doing everything from the heart. And we were really trying to showcase just how talented these recording artists are.
I'm so intrigued now. Thank you for giving us that wonderful breakdown of it, because DMX is my favorite artist. Anybody will tell you, when I played football, that's what I had in the headphones going. It got me going. It got me lifted. My first album I ever had was that Notorious B.I.G. Ready to Die. That Baby on that was the first one my brother took me to go get. And I thought I was listening to a movie. I couldn't tell the difference because it was just so well put together. But I'm looking at a lot of these texts. I feel like some were either handwritten or because they don't look like typefaces at all.
Let me stop you right there. As we mentioned, I have graffiti roots. That is where I come from. That is what I know. And my goal when we would sit down to talk about how we were going to handle the visuals for any given album cover, first thing that I was taught was the logo comes first. And oftentimes that meant creating something that you could see from a block away, because back in the day, 12-inch albums, they sit in a rack. When you walked in that mom and pop shop, people had to be able to see that thing, and you're competing with every other recording artist that's in those record bids, whether they be hip hop, rock and roll, country, or classical, whatever it is, pop, whatever. You had to compete with those folks. And so the idea was that logo had to just knock them over the head. And so that was always the thinking. And that was the first thing. And then for me, I always wanted an opportunity to showcase my hand skills, because that's what graffiti artists are. They are all about hand skills. Anytime there was an opportunity to do a signature or a logo, that's what I was going to do. Wow. And, once in a while, I'll let somebody else on the team, take a shot at some for the part. I was very territorial about those logos because that was something that I just loved. I loved it so much. And so oftentimes I was the guy charged with doing the logos.
So I'm going to put you in a bind here. Which one, if it's not even up here or in general, would you say is your favorite album that you were just like, wow, this is next level. This is something completely out of the realm that I didn't even think would have been able to be made?
I'm going to say at a glance, Public Enemy, first and foremost, Fear of a Black Planet. And I say that with the notion that I did not design the Public Enemy logo. Chuck D did. I did not design the Public Enemy logo. But it's still one of my favorites because of all of the recording artists, except for maybe Beastie Boys. Chuck D gave us a lot of creative freedom. But at the same time, he was very hands-on. But he gave us a lot of creative freedom. And so every time we got an opportunity to interpret a Public Enemy record, it was always a lot of fun because Chuck was a visual guy, as we all now know, if you follow any of his social media platforms. But he would always let us fly. He'd come in with a little thumbnail sketch and say, this was my idea for the cover. And then, boom, you guys decide how to bring it to life. And that over and over and over again. And he's one of my favorite collaborators. Same thing with Beastie Boys. They always had an interesting idea. It was my job to figure out a way to bring it to life. And we always had fun.
That's so dope. That is so dope. Thank you for sharing that, man. Just looking at it and through my own research of sitting down and looking you up, I was just like, there's no way all these typefaces existed back then. I was like, someone had to.
This predates typefaces in cases.
Yeah.
It predates typefaces. A lot of times these things were hand drawn. And I'll give a good example of a logo that I did not design. It is the EPMD logo by my buddy Eric Hayes. Hand drawn logo. And you have to know how to put pen to paper and use mechanical tools and draw these logos. This was, drafting 101. That's the school that I come from. Homemade, handmade.
So I'm curious now that, how did your design approach change when it came to working for these different projects? Because you were at Def Jam for a minute. It wasn't like you were there for like 5 years and took off. No, you were there for a minute and you've done plenty of albums. So how did your approach change from from the 80s to the 90s to the 2000s? Like, how did that approach change?
Well, first and foremost, the number one thing is communication. You have to be able to communicate with the recording artist. And I don't say that lightly because very often I had to go to the studio for meetings. We had to go to nightclubs. Sometimes you're on the side of the stage and cats are rocking and you're just on deck waiting for them to come off to, hit you with some liner notes or whatever. I got to make sure grandma's in the thank yous. And it's serious business because this is, these folks' lives.
Right.
And they're trusting you with their baby. And you can't get it wrong. And so there was a lot of different ways in which we would do this. There was no one way, but the one thing that we would have to do first and foremost is make sure that we listen to the music and we really understand. And I say that loud because there were times when we were, the team had gotten so big, we were doing so much work and, you start to lose your groove. And then all of a sudden it's like you just hear the name of an artist and you think you got it figured out. And you can't get a hold of the cassette or the demo CD and you just start designing. And then you find out it's an R&B cat. You're just, blindly thinking it's hip hop.
Right.
And then all of a sudden you're in a boardroom and you're embarrassed because you didn't do the number one thing that you always have to do, connect with the music. And that only had to happen one time for me to know I'm never going to make that mistake again.
Right.
But there were a lot of different ways in which we would go about creating a cover. Sometimes you listen to the music. Sometimes the artist has an idea and you have to figure out a way to, let them know that they're heard. But the professional, let me drive.
Yeah.
In the passenger seat. Because, sometimes they have great ideas and sometimes the ideas are not that great. And you have to figure out a diplomatic way to let them know, yo, my man, I hear you, but,
trust me on this.
Yeah. This is what I do.
Right.
And more times than not, I'll say we were given that freedom. But it's the hardest thing in the world for a new artist to come to the label and they want to tell you what their idea is for the cover. And sometimes these folks are, first records. So it's not like they really have any track record or any experience. And my favorite thing that I hate is my cousin's a photographer. My man is nice with the marker. He's gonna do a tag for my logo. My cousin is going to work on the record and you're just going to show him how to make it hot. And we can't do it that way. And it's really, really difficult. Really difficult.
I believe it. So now that we're at Def Jam and we've seen these album covers, are there any modern day album covers that you've seen that you're just like, yo, that's good work? I like that. Because to me personally, I feel like now that everything has gone digital, we don't see the 12-inch vinyls anymore. We don't get the posters anymore. You know, I still go to Amoeba to try to find those type of things. So is there anything you've seen that you're very much impressed with now?
I like what Travis Scott has been doing, and I like what Kanye's always finding a way to keep it creative. But one of the young guys, and I did work on this record, he did something really interesting, was Vic Mensa. I don't know if you're familiar with
Yes.
Vic Mensa, but he came up with a really clever cover concept, and we figured out a way to put it together, and it turned out great. He's somebody that I like a lot. And I like what some of the young female artists are doing as well, because they're really just pushing it and they're not afraid to be their authentic selves. And we need more of that. We need more of that.
Most stuff.
I miss working with people like Foxy Brown and Little Kim, but I like what a lot of the young female artists are doing.
Okay. So now we're going to step into this new creative process where you're working with big brands. Like you've worked with Levi's, you've worked with Mattel, Apple, Converse. So it's like, how did you balance that corporate collaboration and still keep your artist integrity? Because it's like you've gone from literally straight hip hop and R&B into this very polished, clean, corporate world of
Well,
design.
the thing that you have to remember is I'm the one making the work.
Mhm.
And the thing that I feel very fortunate about coming along when I did is I think the creative directors are much more savvy than they were in the 80s. And by that, what I mean is we've been in the space long enough where they understand that if they're going to tap somebody that's been doing this for a minute, not going to dictate what they do. And this is one of the things that I enjoy about the time that we're living in right now. Because the creative directors have enough respect to meet you right where you are. And when they hire you, they're hiring you for you, not you to do an interpretation of
Right.
you.
Right.
And, I laugh, but I've seen people do it where they hire you and then they say, hey, we want you to recreate this. And you look and it's like, this is my man's artwork. They don't know that,
You know that
yes, but
you know who that is. Yeah.
yeah. And really it's important when somebody says, we're hiring you, do your thing. These are the goals that we want to achieve, but we want you to create, your thing in your voice. This is the message that we want to, approach to, make sure that the idea is genuine and authentic. I have to say that's refreshing because it's taken us a lifetime to get.
Yeah. Yeah, it has. So back on the genuine and authentic tip, I also saw that you even helped with creating the Dave Chappelle logo. And he's
Not helped. I created the
okay.
logo.
Okay.
Be clear.
All right, I take that back. But I saw that you created the
Yes.
infamous David
And
Chappelle logo for the
like,
Chappelle show.
no, Dave was watching this, he'd be laughing because Dave is my buddy. And this is the deal. I met Dave in, I believe, 2001. My buddy Neil Brennan, who was Dave's creative partner on Chappelle's show. We were friends and we connected, and the three of us sat down and they told me that they were doing a sketch comedy show. And Dave said, I heard about you. I know that you did everything for Def Jam and you did the logo for Hot 97, which, as you know, maybe your viewers and your listeners don't know, but Hot 97 is, the number one radio station in the country.
Right.
But it's also a staple here in New York City. So in, I want to say 1997, maybe, I designed the Hot 97 logo. It's instant street cred because that logo has been copied, by so many Hot One, this and that.
Yeah.
And I feel really honored. And so Dave knew that. And he said, I want you to create a logo for my show, Chappelle Show. And he
that's great.
gave me a VHS tape at the time. This is how it tells you how long ago this was. VHS. Do your homework, kid. And I watched some of the sketches, and it was raw. I mean, it was raw. This is pre and living color. It was raw. And it just reminded me of some of the most revolutionary comedy that I had seen up to that point. And I'm taking into consideration all the greats. I'm just saying, for me, this was in that same vein. Yeah. He wasn't playing.
Right.
And so I immediately thought, this is a revolutionary moment in comedy. That's why it's red, black, and green. And that was it. I just started with that direction. And I did a couple of variations. And David and Neil and the rest of his team, they zeroed in on it really quickly. And they decided this is going to be my logo. And like I said, I think Chappelle Show debuts in 1.
Yeah, I can double check that, but I think it is 2001.
Yeah. You said 2002. It's over 20 years.
Yes, yep.
Dave knew he wanted to own the logo lock, stock, and barrel because he wanted to do what he wanted to do, the way he wanted to do it. And to my understanding, I've never seen a comedian brand themselves in the way that he did. And this is a quote. This is not me saying this. Kevin Hart said that whenever you see Dave Chappelle and that damn logo, that thing is like the bat signal. And, to me, that's the highest form of praise. And I was so honored to, hear that. And I don't even remember where I heard it, but he said it. And I thought, man, it's so wonderful to be a part of something that great. But the thing is, I created the logo. But Dave is the one that made it great, because he's the one that made it famous. I've done a lot of things that you've never seen nor heard. And that's why I frame it in that way, because he's the one that put the gas in the tank.
Right. Yep.
I gave him the tank.
Right.
He put the gas in there.
Yeah. So you have this really dope and incredible process of turning a broad theme into this super visual story that resonates with people. Now, how, from your perspective, you shared talking to the people, but how do you pull that out to get it so that when people see it, they feel it, they understand it, they know it's authentic?
Well, I think it just starts with that, really trying to be as pure and honest as you can. And the other thing is that when I'm designing for me first, client second, because if you can't get past, what I deem, enjoyable, hot, fly, cool, fresh, whatever, the client's never going to see it. And oftentimes that's one of the things that happens, is that, people are trying to please somebody they can't see, and you can't make something with somebody else that you don't love. And any creative out there knows, if you have 3 options that you've come up with, you hate one of them and you like another, and the one in the middle is mediocre, let's just say. If you put all 3 of those things in front of a client, there's no telling what's going to get.
Yep. Right.
So if you don't like something and your heart is not in it, don't show it, because more times than not, that'll be the one
that they picked.
And so it's hard to do that. And so I got to a point where I just would not show something that I didn't absolutely love. And I think with that understanding, when I put something out into the universe, I'm good with it no matter what happens. And that's really the approach. I don't think about it anywhere beyond that. And I don't take any responsibility for the success. I just think I've done the best job that I can. And I hope something good happens, but you can't predict anything in show business. Like,
Right.
has
No.
that kind of power. But I really feel fortunate when I give a piece of creative to somebody and they see enough in it that they want that to be their identity. And Mary J. Blige is another example of that. And I'll tell you a fun little story. Pull the logos, the
Back up.
I'll
Here
just
you go.
see them because it'll just help me while I'm thinking. Mary J. Blige, What's the 411 comes out, I want to say in 1994. I'm guessing. I get those kind of mixed up. Let's just say 1994. It's 1994 or 1992. It's one of those. But I did that logo and I was so proud of it. And it took me 50 passes before I got that penmanship the way that I wanted it. Rest in peace to my buddy Andre Harrell. He was a champion at Uptown MCA and he gave me that opportunity. And Diddy, was his right-hand man, and Puff and I put that thing together. And
so you hand wrote you wrote that.
Yeah.
That is incredible. If you guys are looking at it, that's her most iconic. Anytime you see Mary J. Blige on any flyer, any club, anywhere in Vegas, you see this signature. Oh my goodness.
And so most of the time, when you look at my albums, if you see hand lettering, I did it.
Yeah.
Most of the time. I'm not going to say every single time. Most of the time.
Yeah. The one I think I saw was the Redman one. I was like, someone had to write that. I was like, that has to be handwritten.
Yeah.
My goodness.
And so, back to this Mary story. So I meet Mary in whatever it was, 1994. We, doing this album cover. The photographer's name is Tim Carter. And he took the most beautiful, mysterious photo. And when I finished doing the logo, like I said, I do my job and I step away from it. And that was it. And the rest really is history. The record took off. Mary became a star. And certainly now she's a household name. All these years later. But you look at her first 1, 2, 3, I think her first 4 records, that logo is on the cover. And that is a testament to how powerful her identity was and how it was heavily associated with that graphic. And that is an honor all by itself. All by itself.
That is. You're basically you're a history maker and a historian all in one. Like you created history.
What else that is time. At a glance, I don't even know how long ago 1994 was. Right. But I know it was a long time ago because Mary's getting inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, along with a lot of my other friends who are on this wall that we're looking at. They are all in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and that means that they've been making records for more than 25 years. So,
man, the stories you have probably could fill up a movie, like of just being a creator and creating.
Yeah, surface, and I was thinking about this before. It's like this is definitely like a 2-episode joint.
Yeah, 100%. Because this is just getting to know who you are.
Right.
Now it's like if we went through and I picked out some, you picked out some, that would definitely be a part 2 because you could tell working with DMX, working with Mary, working with Red and Meth, like, because I know Redman and Method Man, that was around the time Meth had stepped away from Wu-Tang to work with Red. So I know that's an interesting conversation too. So we could go on and on, but I want it to be about you.
Like some of the recording artists I worked with, I haven't seen them in a really, really long time. And it's been a lot of years since I had seen Redman and Method Man. I hadn't seen either one of them. I'd have to do the math to think about how long it's been, but it's been a really, really long time. And so I was in Dave Chappelle's hometown where he lives right now. And everywhere you go in this town, Dave's,
everywhere.
Logo. And he said to me, he says, I want you to come to my town because your artwork is everywhere. And it was just the most wonderful thing.
Such an honor.
He said, and I got a big surprise for you. And he says, come on, we're going to the club. And we go to the club, and, it's still early. There's nobody in there, and he's showing me around. And I was like, it's my logo, my logo, my logo. And all of a sudden, he goes, there's some guys here that are going to do a performance in a minute. And they're getting ready to do the sound check. And Red and Meth come out. Like, say, what's up?
Goodness.
Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, man, it made me realize I haven't seen these dudes in a really long time.
Yeah.
And everything I see is on social media. It was really cool to dap each other up and really just, kick it about the old days.
Right.
It's just one of those things where so much time has passed, and it's just so wonderful now that everybody's grown up. Everybody's got the wisdom,
kids, grandkids,
and it's just a really great space to be in when people understand enough to acknowledge you and to say, wow, you had your finger on the pulse at a time when all I wanted to do is make a record.
Right. So speaking of having your finger on the pulse, let's talk about this award-winning Smithsonian. Like, you designed the anthology of hip hop and rap. Okay, I'm excited for you, but I know, how did they approach you? How did this process happen for you?
Well, just so your listeners and viewers can frame it and Google it on their own time, it's called the Smithsonian Anthology of Hip Hop and Rap. It is a 300-page coffee table book and a 9 CD box set that goes from the Sugar Hill Gang in 1979 straight up to present day with Drake and everybody in between. So you got Run-DMC, Public Enemy, LL Cool J, Beastie Boys, Redman, Method Man, De La Soul, EPMD, Ja Rule, all of the cats on the West Coast, Ice-T, Ice Cube, name it, Warren G, and, just so many others. I can't even get into it because there's just too many people to remember. And all of the amazing female artists, Little Kim, Foxy Brown, my girl MC Light, Queen Latifah, the greatest of them all, in my opinion. And just to be able to be charged with designing a document of historical proportions in that way, and for them to say, we want you to art direct and design this, and to step back and to really give me unprecedented creative control is so much fun. And I started working on that project and we started having a conversation in 2015. I started, I think, working in 2016. It took me 6 years to finish that box set. 6 years, straight up to the pandemic. And in, 2021, I got that thing across the finish line at the printer, and it was one of the greatest feelings of my life.
Oh, man, I saw it and I was like, oh my goodness. I put that on my birthday list for my wife to get me. That's a phenomenal piece of work. So I kind of want to step into this. Now we're moving to more where you're becoming this mentor and you're becoming this teacher. And I just have a question for you. With everything changing, with everything in technology evolving, what is your take on AI? Because I feel like a lot of creatives are using AI instead of reaching out to a professional like you or myself to create these things for you. So what is your take on that?
Well, if there's one thing I've learned about technology is that it's never going to stop moving forward. And at some point, they will get it right. At some point. I don't personally use it, but I'm always curious as to how somebody will use it to create something amazing, and it'll fill a void. And I know the argument is that it's going to replace creatives. whether they be photographers or illustrators or designers. But I'm hopeful that we will figure it out and it will become a tool the same way the computer is a tool, the same way the phone is a tool, a device. It can't think for you. And we've seen that where
Right.
it can get some things right. And then
But
one
not
thing is
everything.
like, eh.
Yeah.
It's like, it's like there's still a need for what we do. And I'll just leave it at that because, like a lot of stories, it still remains to be written.
Okay. So with you being now in your mentoring and teaching phase, like you've taught at MoMA, you've taught at Howard, you've even come out to Cali and went to Stanford, sharing your knowledge with like this newer generation. So what drives you to continue to share this wealth of knowledge that you have?
I have a son that has a lot of kids. And so I'm a grandfather and I have a lot of little mouths that need, nourishment and candy money. So I work because there's nothing I love more than making stuff. And I feel really fortunate that I've had the opportunity to make things in the way that I imagined when I was a teenager. Somehow my friends and I have figured out how to move forward in this space from a place of respect. And now we're the elder statesmen and folks still want to know what we think. And that's just the greatest thing of all, to be able to sit down with a bunch of young people and tell a story, not because you read it, but because you were there.
Fair. Yeah.
That is not something that's lost on me. And, when we had this conversation, what's the young brother's name? Gabriel?
Gabriel. Yeah. The
And
photographer.
I
Yeah.
really hope he's listening because, like I said to you, I'm not angry or upset, but it's my job to check people when they're not right. And like right behind me, you can see a piece right behind me. If I told you that that was my favorite piece and you say to me, wow, that's really cool. Who made that? And I go, I don't know. Then how is it my favorite piece if I don't know? And so when that young brother was, just like this, he's on a Zoom call and I noticed immediately, I says, wow, there's Jeanette's photo of Slick Rick. And I says, okay, I'm going to chill.
Yeah.
Now this goes down. And the first thing Money said was, wow, this is one of my favorite pictures. And I'm thinking, then where's the love? If it's one of your favorites, you should know who took that picture. My girl, Jeanette Beckman, took that picture. And, just to frame it for you so you really understand what I'm talking about, one day, Jeanette and I are at Art Basel in Miami, and we're walking down the street. And across the street, there's a young brother of color, and he's selling paintings that he made of hip-hop superstars. And from all the way across the street, Jeanette says, that's my LL Cool J picture. So we walk across the street, and Jeanette's like, wow, that's a really beautiful painting. And goes, yeah, you like that? Yeah, I made that. That's my man, LL. And she says, well, that's really interesting. She goes, well, where did you get the reference image for that piece that you made? And he goes, I don't know, got it off the internet from some old archive. And Jeanette says, excuse me, but that's my photograph. I'm the old archive. And if you're going to making work, with my images, at least credit me and you should know who took the picture.
Yeah.
Simple as that. And that's where we are. My friends are cultural pioneers. And this is the same thing. Like if you were listening to pick your favorite rapper and rocking out to his music and somebody says, hey, Joss, that's really cool. What do you listen to? Oh, this is my favorite record, man. Yeah, okay, cool. What's the artist's name? Oh, I don't know. I was like, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
No. It's like if somebody said they really dig your show and you go, tell me your favorite episode. And they go, no, I don't know none of the episodes.
No, I see what you mean. Yeah. But it does go back to like what I even shared with you when we talked about it. It's like, it's a generation trying to learn. He appreciated it And that's what even helped him get into photography. And then the other thing was it probably even slipped his mind because just like sometimes when we're talking, it's just like we're trying to remember these things really quick. But I'm telling you, Gabriel's a great guy, and he would even sit here and have a ton of questions for you.
Good.
Because
let him know that the OG, as he loves her photography, now she wants to meet him because I told her that story. And she's one of the best people in the business. And I want to talk about a pioneer. Jeanette has photographed so many people.
Right.
And when you Google her name and Gabriel Googles her name, he's really going to be a fan then. And at least he'll be able to say, that's Jeanette Beckman.
Yeah. All right, Gabriel, I know you're listening, brother. So, hey, we going to have to set something up so you guys can meet. This is going to be epic. Wow.
And if you really want to treat yourself, have Jeanette on the show.
Okay, most definitely.
She'll give you, a mouthful, and you'll see some of those photos, and you'll be like, yo,
that's her.
Real deal.
That's her. So, man, he's going to geek out on that. My man is going to love that. He's going to be excited about that. So what advice would you give, like, emerging creatives that are trying to, like, just navigate commercial success on top of not losing their artistic identity? Because you haven't lost yours since you started from graffiti to hip-hop to now.
The thing is, like, you can't label it, because everybody wants to work with name brands. You didn't ask me how many times, my work has been compromised. You didn't ask me what my worst experience was working with, corporate America. Yo, I got stories, man. That'll make you cry. But I kept on getting up and I kept on doing my things. Have to talk about those things, but if I was in a classroom and I was with students and I really wanted to inspire them, I'd be like, hey, you're living in paradise. Let me tell you about a guy that could have been broken.
Yeah.
And just keep on moving. And that's what the business is. The business is, we're going to knock you down. We're going to tell you you're whack. We're going to tell you you don't matter. We're going to tell you that your generation, your people, all of these things are not what's important. And we're going to steal your ideas, and we're not going to give you credit. But you have to know that you were put here for something greater. You got to get up. You got to get out. And just like Little Emil said in that Jay-Z song, you got to get up, get out, and get something.
Right.
That's what it is. That's what it is. It's one day. It's every day. And so when you ask me, what inspires me, it's just the idea that I know that there's somebody out there that hasn't heard this, somebody that needs that inspiration. First and foremost, there's a lot of talented people that just don't have the confidence, and they don't know how to get out the gate. And I'm saying, yo, boom.
Yeah.
This is that dude. I was that kid in my room as a teenager with a crazy little dream and didn't have a mentor, didn't have allies, didn't have an older brother or somebody to
help guide you.
So yeah, I had my parents, they're just busy trying to take care of the family.
Right.
And I was the only creative one in the family, so I was on a desert island.
Yeah, I know how that feels. Most definitely know how that feels. Well, Cey, man, we're cooking up, but I want to be respectful of your time. Just got a few more things I want to talk about. So what is one project you've worked on that holds the most personal significance to you?
This is going to sound crazy, but they all do. Man, you don't even want to know how hard I dreamed of this day, but without a roadmap, so I just knew I wanted to learn how, make, something, have and develop a skill that could sustain me as an adult. I had a child at a young age. I had to figure out a way to create literally something out of nothing. That is what hip hop is. We created something out of nothing. And then we just ran with it. And so for me, it's just, just continuing to do what I do at a high level with authenticity and integrity. And I just hope that I'm speaking to somebody like-minded, because that's really all that there is. You're going to make money, you're going to spend money, you're going to lose money. But if you can look at what you've made, you can feel good about it, and you know you didn't cheat yourself, that's all that there is. There is nothing else. And I said this one time before. I remember when I was a kid, and my dad would ask me to sweep the floor in my room. And my idea was I was going to sweep what I thought he could see. And everything else is like, okay, I'm not going under the bed. I'm not going under the dresser. I'm just going to sweep this little corner where, he might be standing. He, comes in and he slides the bed over. And he goes, what happened over here? And I think he was going to check. And the moral of the story is, do the kind of work that you'd be proud of, regardless of if anybody sees it. Because if somebody just says to you, hey, Joss, let me see, a handful of your designs. We want to just pick something and we want to, plaster it all over the country. Yeah, go, let me tighten that up now. What had happened was, or, meant to do, and this is why I love this line. You never get a second chance to make a first impression. And that means go hard all the time, every time, because you never know who else is running.
Right.
You can't go, well, if I would have known money was that fast, you did my thing. No, go hard. And that's what hip hop is. We go hard all the time. That's what Illmatic is. That's what Ready to Die is. That's, the first DMX joint, the first Jay-Z joint, the first Public Enemy joint. When you listen to those records, their lives were on the line. They're like, yo, this is
I have nothing left. This is what I have to
do.
Yep.
And that's the way you have to look at it. Do the best job you can. And if you do that and great things happen, fantastic. If it doesn't, you still did the best job that you could. And that's as much as you can do.
Right. So I don't even know where to start, man. You've traveled, your skill set has covered music, art, design, graffiti, branding. And what excites me is you're still
film and television.
See what I mean? You've covered I should just be like, you are just a flat out creator. You covered all of them. So I'm just curious, what is something like that you haven't done yet that you would love to explore or try?
I don't really think about it like that. What I think about is being grateful that I've had the opportunity. And I'm always excited when I meet other young people that are just starting out and they say, I was raised on the work that you did. I like it a lot. And I just want people to appreciate the work that myself and my friends did, because we created hip hop.
Right.
We created hip hop, whether you had a microphone in your hand or you were dancing on linoleum or you were scratching on a record. Whatever it is, if you had a can of spray paint in your hand, if you were just a songwriter, if you were somebody that aspired to be a photographer, an illustrator, a filmmaker, it's like we are hip hop. It's not one thing. And the thing that I love about hip hop is that nobody gets to decide who can participate. You get to do that. Nobody can take that away from you. Like this little girl in Australia that in the Olympics that
breakdancing
got all of this attention and negative attention. First and foremost, nothing but love for my people in Rocksteady crew, because they paved the way. They're not saying they were the first, but they paved the way for everybody. Show some respect for the art form. And just understand that you stand on the backs of giants. And that's what it is. Everybody that's in this game owes a debt to somebody that came before them. And if I point to the people that I believe I stand on the shoulders of, you're like, oh, I never heard of them before. That's okay. But you heard of me, and I'm telling you about them. So just remember, like you said, Dondi White was here. Crazy Legs was here. Frosty Freeze was here. MCA, Adam Yauch was here. You know, like Biz Markie was here. You know, this is what we do. This is what we do. DMX was here. You know, and it just goes on and on and on. You know, living or dead. It doesn't matter. Like, you know, we came and we did something.
Yeah.
Simple.
Most def.
Well,
Most def.
where's the mic, man?
Let's drop it.
Can of spray paint, you know?
Yeah, most definitely. But so I'm going to end on this one right here, man. I just appreciate this. I just feel like eyes were opened on this because I believe not many people knew who you were. They knew your work, but they didn't know who you were. And I think this gave them a very big grand opening to the greatness of Cey Adams. And so lastly, I just want to know, what would you want your lasting impact to be on the world of, I would say art, but I'm going to just say creativeness, because you've touched and blessed each part that you've been in.
Again, I was here. Importance is, people lived a full life, and for whatever reason, they didn't get the love and attention that their work might have deserved because it went to somebody that came years later. Just said, I was here. That was the goal from the time I was a teenager. I am here. I have talent. I have value. And if I can figure out a way to earn a living doing this thing that I love, mission accomplished. And that is, the goal, 60 years later. Well, 50. But the idea is that I was here. And I like to believe that I left an indelible mark on the culture. Whatever that is, I did my thing, and I'm still doing it.
Yeah. So before we get out of here, how can people find you first off? How can people find you?
My handle on Instagram is @Cey Adams, CEYADAMS. And I really use that for all the platforms, whether it's, X or, Facebook.
Instagram, yeah.
First name, last name.
Got you. Is there any projects coming up you want to share with the people? Anything you have cooking up or anything coming this year?
Yeah, but they can just follow the grams.
Follow it. Okay, got you.
You on there. Because, working on some things that are really fun. And I just marvel at the time that we're living in because I think they get it now.
Right. Yeah.
I don't have to tell you who the they is, but that's what it is. They see us now, and so we don't have to convince them that we know what we're doing.
Right.
The question
100%.
is, how long did it take you all to
get here?
Because, we've been doing this for a minute.
Right. All right, you guys. Thank you for listening. My name is Justin Robinson. I have the master, the living legend, Cey Adams, and this is the Art School Graduate Podcast. We'll catch you guys later. Peace.
Thanks for having me, Joss.